Hello, hello. I hope that this volume is working and that you can hear me okay. Welcome back to day 2. I am so glad you're here. Welcome back to Healthy Relationships with yours truly, Heidi Rain. I have such a great teaching for you today. I am so excited. I was writing out today when I was preparing, and I never really like to do this too much ahead of time because I really want to be organic when I come here and leave room to flow and talk about whatever comes to my heart and whatever I feel like sharing. And when I was preparing this morning, even I was like, oh, this is good. This is going to be a really, really good meeting today. So I am just so excited to bring you this information today. Now, we're talking about all things toxic relationship because we are in the middle of getting ready to begin our fall semester of our toxic relationship recovery program. I can't wait. Already we are enrolling students. I am super excited to go on this journey. I'm honored really to be on the journey and help the healing process begin for so many people. And the reviews are in, as far as this program goes, people have said it's really life-changing. And I'm just so honored, like I said, to be able to just be a part of it. The feedback that I get from it is just so heartwarming. And it's so amazing to see people really heal and reach their fullest potential in life and go on to even help other people do the same thing with our Empowerment Coach University. So if you're thinking about joining the program and you don't even need to stick around to hear what I'm going to say today because you already know, you've been watching for a long time. Sometimes you've been watching my videos for years before you actually decide to take action and come into the program. But if you're thinking about it, don't wait. Send me a message, go over to lovecoachheidi.com or heidirain.com and reach out to me. And I'm happy to, or leave a comment here and say, Heidi, I'm ready. What's the next step? And I will personally reach out to you and connect with you and tell you what you need to do to go ahead and get signed up for the program. I just want to double check, make sure it's a good fit. And rather than just allow you to join, I want to make sure that you're going to get the results that you're looking for out of this program. We have different programs and I want to make sure this is the right one for you. But if we've already talked and you know where the link is, use it, secure your spot, and go ahead and sign up. So we're going to be talking about something that I've called relationship shrapnel. Toxic relationship shrapnel. And why is this topic so important today? Because we always say here that most people stay in a dysfunctional or toxic relationship because they simply don't know they're in one. You remember Facebook button, it's complicated. Most people just think they're with a really complex person and they learn how to navigate that complex person and spend all their energy and time learning how to walk on the eggshells and do all the things they need to do to be okay. Meanwhile, they're left in the dust with all of this emotional turmoil and shrapnel that I call it from being in a relationship with somebody who's so broken themselves. And so much of our energy goes to fixing these broken people or trying to help them get better or stop hurting us or see the light that we neglect ourselves in the process. And then by the time we realize how much we've been neglected, the signs of shrapnel are everywhere. And it's really a good indicator that it is definitely time to take the time to heal so that we can do what I always want to do, which is my mission and purpose in the world. And you know this by now, it's to heal the next generation. It's to make sure that we break these toxic, dysfunctional cycles for good once and for all, so that we can have our next generations be living a different life. They're not going to be subjected to the same types of things that we are having to heal from now. They're going to come into the world knowing their worth and their value and what a healthy relationship is, because you're going to lead the way. Amen. And you're going to show them what it means to truly be loved and let yourself love other people in a way that's healthy and reciprocal and consistent. All right. So let's dive into this toxic relationship shrapnel. What the hell is that? Well, when you're in with a toxic or dysfunctional person in a relationship, you are a victim. I know you hate that word, but it's the truth. You are a victim of their internal battle. They're at war with themselves, psychologically or emotionally or spiritually. They're in their own war, and then you become a casualty in their war. And there are very specific ways that war that they're in with themselves bleeds all over you. And the shrapnel is what you're left with. Now, if you can identify with any one of these 7 different markers that I'm going to give you, it's definitely time to take some action. Why? because you will continue to repeat the patterns over and over and over again versus breaking the patterns once and for all and finally having that relationship that you know deep down that is available, that you deserve, and that's waiting for you. So please, again, your comments have been amazing. Be sure to leave your comments here. I read them at the end. I will be back again tomorrow to answer more questions and talk with you, but we're taking it one day at a time. And this is what we're talking about today. Now, I was so fired up about this talk today that I very rarely make this kind of detailed notes, but I'm going to tell you, I had to whip out my highlighter today from taking my own damn notes because I was like, this shit is good. You know, not to be full of myself, but man, I was coming up with some good stuff today that I really think you're going to resonate with. And so even if you are not planning or you are planning on joining my program, I want you to take notes anyway, because listen, maybe the time is later instead of now for you. Maybe you're not ready to join the September 7th course, or sorry, October. What month are we in? September 7th course, and you want to wait till the winter semester that's in December. You're going to wait 3 months to join me. Take notes now so that you can start working on this stuff ahead of time. But these are the things we work on inside the program. So everything that I'm going to tell you now today, you're going to go, that's great, Heidi. Why are we spending so much time on the problem? Why are you talking about the problem so much? Because I'm going to tell you a secret to life. You can only solve a problem to the level of your understanding of that problem. This is a very crucial step that most people miss. They put Band-Aids on flesh wounds because they don't thoroughly understand the problem that they're actually solving. Now, a doctor goes to medical school and spends hundreds of thousands of dollars and a decade of his time or her time learning how to properly diagnose and treat problems. All they learn about is problems, and then they spend time learning about the solutions to the problems, but they spend equal amounts of time learning about the problem as they do the solution. Now, the brave people in the world are the ones that aren't afraid to talk about the problem. You know, most people don't see because they're afraid to look. They don't want to look at the problem. They just want to go, what's the Band-Aid, Heidi? What's the pump up? What's the positive solution? Give me the tape. Give me the fucking affirmation that I can say that I'm going to make myself feel better. But unfortunately, on the way to freedom is a stop in Pain Town. And you're going to have to take that detour into Pain Town so that you can really properly diagnose and assess where you really are at. So we're going to go to the Pain Town today. All right. But I promise you that the healing and the journey is inside of my program. Now, you might say, well, that's not fair. You know, why don't you give me the healing right now? Well, honey, mommy got to pay the bills. Mommy got to put the dinner on the table. Okay. Mommy got to take care of her child. Mommy got to do things in life and has to take care of things. So I can't give everything away. Right. I've got to, the solution requires an investment. And that's the investment that you're going to make in yourself when you come alongside of me inside this program. But let's get into the problem today. That's half the step. Like I said, that's half the step is properly diagnosing what's going on. So if you have had a toxic relationship of any kind, you were born into it. You had a toxic narcissistic parent. You had an alcoholic or addicted parent. You might not even consider them that way because you're like, I got out, I survived. They weren't really alcoholic. They just drank too much. You probably aren't even aware of the depths of that impact on your life. I'm going to educate and shine the light today when we go to Pain Town. It's going to be okay. I promise. You've got a good guide. You're going to be fine. Or you married it. You got into a relationship with somebody that was a narcissist or an addict or an alcoholic, and they did a number on you. And even though you escaped or you ended that relationship, you still find yourself exhibiting one of these 7 symptoms. And that's how you know that you have this shrapnel. And it's time to start your healing process by systematically removing this shrapnel one piece at a time. What's the first piece of shrapnel that has been stuck in you by a toxic or dysfunctional person? It is you have an inability to be in the present moment. Well, what's that look like in real life when you can't be here now? It's that you're constantly distracted. And what you're distracted by is either anxiety over the past. You're constantly ruminating over that thing that happened. And when you ruminate, you just don't ruminate, you overanalyze. You think about every single detail, what it could have been done differently, what should have been done differently. And that causes a mixture of anxiety and depression in you. You can feel that when you start to time travel back into the past. And maybe you ruminate and relive old traumas or experiences, and they come like a flash sometimes for you, where you're doing something kind of that's not even related to the trauma at all. But you'll have a flash of that thing that happened, that maybe the phone call will ring now, or the text will come in, and your body tells you what your mind won't acknowledge, where you think you're over it, but your body tells you otherwise. You're very triggered up by a phone call, by something somebody says. You have these intrusive thoughts or memories that pop into your mind, and you're like back into the event when you didn't plan on going there. And it happens haphazardly and randomly at the worst possible times. And so maybe sometimes, though, you conjure up and think about these traumatic events that have happened in the past, where they did that terrible thing to you, and you're trying to think about what you could have done to prevent it. You're judging yourself. You're going back and replaying that tape over and over again. It happens that way, where you can't live in the present because you're time traveling back into the past and creating all those feelings, or you time travel into the future. And this is where we can get caught in a lot of different ways. We can do what's called a rescue fantasy, where we think, yeah, all that stuff happened, but you know what? The next person that comes along is going to be the knight on a white horse, or the one that's going to make all this okay. And you start to kind of fantasize in the future, or you're strategizing of, if that person comes back into your life, how to behave the right way or the correct way, so that they want to stick it out with you this time, or that they don't hurt you like they did last time. You're strategizing and manipulating how not to get hurt again. And you're overthinking. You're constantly thinking. Your mind never stops. In fact, you have a hard time going to bed and sleeping at night. You just, nighttime is when the freaks can really come out in your mind, and that tape starts to play just as you're starting to go to sleep, and all the old hurts come up, and all the old anxieties, or all the old things that you did that you shouldn't have done, or feel like you could have done differently, start to play over and over in your head. Also, there's this thing about the future where sometimes we get into catastrophizing. This is also a very common form of shrapnel, where when something goes wrong because you've had that old experience, when a minor thing can go wrong, you have a very major reaction, where you say, oh my God, now it's like a snowball in your mind. Well, great, now that happened, this is going to happen, and then that's going to happen. And catastrophizing is a very clear sign that you have some serious shrapnel going on. How does that resonate with you so far? Can you see in your life how you're creating anxiety or creating these feelings of overwhelm by overthinking or ruminating on past experiences, or replaying that tape over and over again of that past relationship? If that relationship is still haunting you in this way, that's a clear indicator that you've been impacted. Now, you're not broken. Of course you feel this way. Of course you're doing these things. How could it be any other way? With an experience like the experience or experiences that you've had in your life, of course you're going to be ruminating and wanting to undo the damage that was done. And one of the ways that we get a false sense of control over the trauma that's happened to us is when we constantly replay it in our mind and try to give it a different ending or a different beginning. And that's a tactic that a lot of trauma survivors use in order to how to kind of self-soothe and make themselves feel better. But it's not working. All right. It's not working. So the second thing that you know that you have shrapnel, a second way that shrapnel shows up for you from a toxic relationship, is in the form of unresolved resentment. Now, this is a tricky thing because it comes out in such a weird way. It comes out as repressed rage. Are you the type of person where you can go from 0 to 60, all of a sudden you're fine and everything is great, and then you find yourself triggered up and you're not fine? You go from 0 to overwhelm just like that. That's a big indicator that you have shrapnel. When you get angry at the wrong people, you find yourself getting triggered up by other people a lot. Somebody reminds you of a certain type of person, and you get bothered by a lot of people, and you're triggered up often, and you don't really get why. And usually it's because when you have such a severe reaction to something, it's because it's that unresolved resentment from the past that's rearing its ugly head. And that same scenario is making you feel like the same thing that happened before, where you felt. Now, some of us have triggers like, for me, it's when I feel underestimated, or for others, it's being misunderstood, or for others, their trigger is being used. You'll find if you keep kind of recreating these scenarios where you feel neglected or abandoned or rejected or hurt or manipulated, that is usually a trauma bonded type of situation where you're enacting and reenacting that same old scenario that's unresolved from way back when. And now you're continuing to re-experience it over and over again. So if you're stuck in that loop where you can't seem to get out of situations where you keep getting rejected or feeling used or manipulated or hurt, that's a really good indicator that that's some pretty good shrapnel. And what we do inside of our program is we have a process called the rapid detachment method that is the extraction for resentment shrapnel. And we walk you through a 7-step process. The way my mind works is like, once I understand a problem, I am immediately on to how do we solve this thing? How do we get through this? What's the next steps? One thing to have that awareness, which is A, but B is now what do I do about it? And that's where you go from victim to victor. It feels sad, when we walk around in this environment and we kind of know we're weighed down by the shrapnel. It's extremely frustrating to feel stuck sometimes. Like, why am I here? Why is this always gray cloud following me around? Why do I always find myself in these situations? I know I have more in me. I know I want more for me. Why is there a limit to my happiness? Why is there a limit to my success? Well, that's the shrapnel that's telling you lies about how far you can go and how much you get to have. And my goal is to systematically take that shrapnel out one piece at a time. And the RDM, or the rapid detachment method, is one of the things that my students have said over the course of several years that has been the most liberating experiential process they have ever participated in to really set them free for the rest of their lives. And it's something that once you learn inside my program that you can do for the rest of your life. It's a step-by-step system. It's duplicatable. So you're able to do this process if resentment continues to come up in your life and you find you're being triggered on later on. You get into this high-level career, you're in a position and your boss is triggering the shit out of you. Well, you go ahead and perform an RDM on yourself and you know exactly how to break free from that for good. All right, let's move on to the third thing. We're doing good. The third thing is trust issues. And, shrapnel from toxic relationship really does manifest as trust for basically every single person I've ever met, but it manifests differently for every person. And how it might manifest for one person might be this inability to be vulnerable. If I have trust issues and I have trust shrapnel from that toxic relationship, when I get into the next thing, I'm going to keep my emotions really close to my chest. I'm not going to let you know how I feel and think on the regular because I don't want to let you in. I'm terrified to let you in when I have that trust shrapnel. So I kind of keep you at an arm's distance. I withhold a lot of what I'm really thinking and feeling. And I'll even withhold love and praise and approval because I'm afraid to get too close to you because I don't know what you're going to do with that information. If you find out things about me, are you going to use it against me? If you've had to trust a person that's toxic, that has violated your trust, of course you're going to have this shrapnel, but it doesn't come out by itself. You're not going to magically meet the right person who's going to just help you trust. In fact, you'll meet somebody who seems pretty trustworthy when you have this shrapnel. And what will you do? You'll test them. You'll poke them and test them. I know you. You'll poke them and test them and try to get them to fuck up so that you can be right that you can't trust anybody. Now, maybe that's not you. Maybe you say, well, Heidi, I do trust. I'm not like that at all. Well, then you're the opposite kind of person. And what you do is you trust everybody and you're loyal to a fault. And trust shrapnel will do that just as much as it does the other type. It will do this clinging type of thing where you are loyal to the wrong damn people and you stay in relationships way too long. So what's the remedy for that? It's learning how to build trust again in yourself, learning how to build trust. We do that inside the program with your intuition, learning how to tap into that gut feeling and knowing what's right for you and not right for you and knowing what that fucking gaslight is and how to avoid it at all costs and how to call it out and see it when it's happening. So many people that have been expertly gaslit have no clue when they're being gaslit anymore because these people are masterful. These toxic, dysfunctional people are so good at what they do. They're so good at manipulating. They're so good at getting to know you and what you need to hear in order to trust them again, to fall and get sucked back in. So in the program, we learn how to not get sucked back in anymore, how to be in resolve about the things that you're no longer willing to settle for and tolerate anymore. So how's that ringing a bell for you? Can you relate to that trust shrapnel? How does it impact you? What side of the fence are you on? Are you withdrawn and you're Alcatraz, you're not vulnerable? Or are you overly confident in your relationships and then you get blindsided and hurt? Let's move on. We're doing good. All right. This is a really interesting phenomenon, and this is the lost self syndrome shrapnel. The lost, that's a mouthful, the lost self syndrome. This is where we put so much energy and effort into understanding another person, into being compassionate for their problems, into trying to fix the other people, the toxic or dysfunctional person that we're with, that we lose ourselves in the process. And many times when that relationship ends, we kind of come out of it and rub our eyes and go, who the hell am I? Where did I go? We lose ourselves in favor of helping and loving somebody else. And many times, this is very common for a lot of my students and clients that are fixers, that are natural born healers and empaths and helpers, and they lose themselves along the way. They get so invested in the project of the person that they're with that they turn around and lose who they are. You know, they're used to walking on eggshells with their toxic or dysfunctional person. And so they need to morph and bend and be whoever they need to be instead of who they really are. And then they lose track of who that once was. Inside of our program, our goal is to change you. It's not to make you become something. It's to excavate who you already are. It is like you're Michelangelo when making a sculpture and the David, and he just moves everything away that's not David, and that's you. It's an excavation process. You know, we need to dig you up. I mean, we need to get back to that authentic, free, love, open person that's capable and able and willing and hopeful and strong and soft and all the things at the same time, so that we can restore you, not invent you. Okay. It's a restoration process. It's a fucking reclamation of who you really are versus who you've needed to be. And that loss of self is extremely common form of shrapnel, where we, like I said, we just lose our sense of self because we're so obsessed and absorbed with helping other people or rescuing somebody that we get lost in the process. Also, when you don't know who you are, you're hypersensitive to criticism. And when somebody offers you feedback, that can be very hard for you to hear. In fact, somebody can tell you 20 things you're amazing at and one thing that you need to work on, and that one thing will stick in your head. And that can lead to a type of shame that we carry around, like who I am isn't good enough. Or you've heard that in your toxic or dysfunctional relationship. You've been accused of being the source of somebody's toxicity. You're the reason that they've been treating you that way. And that's definitely a recipe to lose yourself. Of course, you would lose yourself because yourself isn't good enough. So you reject and denounce who you really are in the sake of being liked or loved by somebody who doesn't even know how to love you in the first place. Okay. Makes sense, right? The fifth thing is self-sacrifice. Oh my God, you're the sacrificial lamb. You put everybody else's needs before your own. And that's type of shrapnel you have when I ask you, hey, what do you want? Or what do you need? And you're like, I don't know. I don't really know what I want. I'm so used to giving everybody else and being there for everybody else that I've lost my own sense of what lights me up. I don't know what I really want or what I really need. And I'm just used to powering through, and pushing and making the damn thing happen. But I've lost kind of myself. I've lost my compass. I've lost what lights me up. And so when your needs go to the wayside, you self-sacrifice by doing what everybody else wants you to do instead of what you really want to be doing, because you don't even know what that really is. And maybe you're overworking. Maybe you have poor boundaries when you self-sacrifice. And that's the type of shrapnel as well. Poor boundaries where at work you get taken advantage of. You get dumped on. Everything is always up to you. You're the only one that seems to take charge and take control of things. It's always up to you all the time. Self-sacrificing at home. You're the one making the whole shit go down. You're the one in charge of everything all the time. The kids, the work, you're making the money, you're making the bacon, you're frying the bacon, you're feeding the bacon, everything but eating the bacon. I don't know. Right? So that's what we want to do in the program, is help restore your sense of your own values and what lights you up, and how to unapologetically pursue the things that you want to be doing with your life. Because somewhere we get the memo in this shrapnel situation that loving yourself or putting yourself in even a first position is a bad thing. We get villainized for wanting to do what we need to do to make ourselves happy. Well, how dare you? That's so selfish. Is it? Or is it the only way, if I'm going to be filled up enough to actually serve in my life and help other people, isn't the only way to make sure I'm full before I start giving to other people? Or else I'm just continually depleted and depleting. Amen. Right. So we learn how to fill up. The sixth thing is self-esteem. It does take a hit. Now, I work with some of the smartest, most talented people in the world. Okay. I have people in high level positions. I have coaches. I have doctors. I have therapists. I have lots of people that make a big impact in the world inside of my programs, and people that want to make a big impact inside of my programs. But what happens is when you're in a toxic relationship, there is this underpinning shrapnel belief of I'm not enough. Again, it could be from the gaslighting. It could be from verbal abuse. It could be from any form of abuse that you suffered, hypercriticism, where somebody was critical of you all the time. But how it shows up is criticism of yourself. You've got an inner critic that won't shut the fuck up. And she's constantly running her mouth about how you're not enough, or it's not enough, and you need more certifications, or you need more things, or you need more money or more hours, you need more approval or whatever it is, or more likes, or we get stuck in that, or there's not enough. You could have all the money you need, but there'll be a lack mentality when you have this kind of shrapnel, and you'll be a money hoarder, and you'll be like, shit, man, I don't want to spend the money. And you have the money, but you're afraid to use the money, especially on yourself. You'll spend the money on somebody else, but you won't spend it on yourself. I'll never forget this one time that I was in a consultation with somebody, and my program is not a huge investment. I know people get scared. They're like, oh my God, it's going to be like 30 grand. Well, for private coaching, it is. We're not doing private coaching. We're doing this semi-private coaching in the group. And it's really not that big of an investment, I don't think, for the value that we provide. Right now, at the time of I'm making this video, it's $2,500 for 3 months. That's not that big of a deal. Okay. Especially when you think about the life change that you're going to make and how it's going to impact every single area of your life. I mean, you're going to make more money, obviously, when you feel when you feel better about yourself and you're more in control and you're more empowered, every area of your life changes. So I digress. It's $2,500. I'm sitting with her to join the program, and she's like waffling on whether or not she's going to invest just $2,500 in herself. And believe me, I got $2,500 sitting in a bag back there. You know what I mean? I'm sure you do too. If we'd rather carry around a Louis bag and pretend we're okay and spend $2,500 on a bag to look like we have our shit together than actually pay $2,500 and get our shit together. Amen. Okay, let's make a wise investment in ourselves. All right. I know Louis Vuitton lasts forever. That's why I collect them too. And they're a good investment, and they don't really last forever. I have to tell you something. They're not that good of a bag. There, I said it. I've had them, and now that I have them, I'm going to tell you something. They're not that great. Anyway, the program is, so I'm telling her about the investment. It's $2,500, and she's like, reluctant. And I launched into the value. I'm like, you're going to learn how to feel your own feelings and set the boundaries and speak your truth and be empowered. And I'm like, I'm going in it. I'm like explaining everything. And she stops me, and she's like, no, Heidi, I know the value. Like, I've watched your videos for a long time. Like, I know that you're going to deliver, and it's going to be amazing. And it's awesome. I have no question about that. So I kind of felt like a jerk. And I was like, well, what's going on then? What's the holdback? And she's like, I don't know if I'm worth that. And I underestimated the shrapnel of self-esteem when it comes to spending money on yourself, when it comes to investing in yourself and joining the program and putting $2,500 towards yourself. My friends are texting. I think that, yeah, that's right. That shrapnel will tell you, am I worth that? Now you'll spend that $2,500 on somebody else. It's $2,500 for 3 months, by the way. It's not like a weekend thing. I mean, this is, 3 months worth of semi-private coaching inside of a group. Every single week we're meeting. You get a course that accompanies the live coaching and the content and Q&A and the emails. I mean, you get the whole thing. Anyway, she had this block because she didn't know if she was worth that, where she would have spent it on somebody else, but not on herself. And I said to her, listen, I get it. And I can't convince you otherwise, because you're not going to know you're worth it, ironically, until you make that investment. If you wait to feel like you're enough to make the investment in yourself, you'll never make the investment. You only feel like enough after you've made the investment. The same way when you carry a good bag around and people think that we're cooler than we are, or when you make the investment in yourself, your self-esteem immediately and automatically reflects, holy shit, I've taken that first step. And anyway, when she did, it was the first time that I cried when somebody ran her card. We both cried in celebration that she was taking that first step and making that arrangement. Now, listen, now I have people that invest tens of thousands of dollars for private coaching. And since then, I'm sure other people have cried thinking, oh my God, that I'm spending so much on private coaching or whatever. But at that time, it was the 2,500, and it still is at this time, 2,500. I'm telling you now, if you're thinking about joining, that she just, it was a celebratory moment. But that shrapnel of self-sacrifice also plays itself in self-deprivation. Like, I'll go without the shoes, I'll go without the thing as long as everybody else can have what they need. And those days of self-deprivation have to end. I mean, it's like, there's a respect thing. Sure, you give the biggest piece of cake to the eldest in the room or whatever, but to wait till everybody gets cake to see if there's any left for you is a real problem. All right. To make sure everybody has enough love and then see if there's enough love for you at the end is a real problem. And self-deprivation has to stop. And if you grew up with a toxic or dysfunctional person who deprived you constantly and you picked up that torch, that's the shrapnel you need to undo starting today. And you need to give to yourself. That's how you rectify that, is you give to yourself. You give yourself opportunities, you give yourself experiences, you give yourself exactly what you need to become more of who you already are. All right. So the self-esteem, I'm not enough, there's not enough. And then the last thing we're going to talk about today, and this is the form of shrapnel, that is emotional dysregulation. And this is probably the most obvious thing, because if I have this issue, my emotions are all over the place. Either I'm not in touch with them at all, I do not know how to express my emotion. In fact, when you ask me how I feel, I'll say, I think I feel. I don't know how to get inside my feelings because this isn't a safe place. And I've learned in my toxic or dysfunctional relationship how to suppress my feelings in favor of survival. And when you're in survival mode, most of your life or most of your relationship, you have no compass as to how you feel anymore because your feelings were irrelevant. You had to feel like shit and show up anyway. You had to be hurt and pretend you weren't. You had to do all those things. And so recovery for you is a walk back home to yourself, to your feelings, to being able to own those and articulate them. Now, this is an issue for you. Like I said, if you don't know what your feelings are, or if you have weird outbursts, right? Like I would be in business meetings and start to cry when somebody would criticize something or somebody would give me feedback, and I didn't know how to handle that. And I would try to protect myself and not cry. Or when I would be wrong or have to admit I was wrong in my marriage, sometimes I would cry because that would trigger me up, like being wrong. So many things that we don't even think about that we actually need to heal from that original toxic relationship. Now, yesterday I talked about my original hater. I talked about my toxic relationships and how this laid the groundwork. You can watch that video if you missed it. But today we're talking about your shrapnel and how it's impacted you. And if you have emotional regulation issues where you don't let yourself feel your feelings, you will stuff them. You will stuff them with food. You will develop an eating issue, an eating disorder even. You will binge and purge. You will restrict. You will starve yourself. You will overeat. You will drown yourself and attempt to shut yourself up with alcohol. You will overdrink. You'll self-medicate. You'll shop. You'll overwork. These are all coping mechanisms to not knowing how to deal with our emotions that are a result of our thinking that was created from our toxic and dysfunctional relationship and all the shrapnel. Now, my goal is to pick out all 7 pieces of this shrapnel, and we do that inside of our toxic relationship recovery program. So today, I'm telling you, if now you know that you want to secure your spot, go ahead. You know the investment. It's $2,500 for 3 months. How it works is you first get access to the course, to the program, to the coaching program. And there are 12 modules. You get a module released. You watch the module. Now, it's work. Okay. This is not your everyday average program. All right. Where it's like, oh, I'm going to learn about how to have a positive affirmation. Okay. This is deep therapeutic. I spent 10 years, almost 10 years, inside of a drug and alcohol treatment center where I perfected my therapeutic coaching models. I had a psychologist supervising me, all of my methodology. I had thousands of case studies and clients to work through this codependency work with over the course of, actually it was about 8 years that I was there total. Okay. So almost a decade, but 8 years. And I perfected the models over time. So this is deep therapeutic work. So it's not for people that want a Band-Aid. If you're ready to go there and you want to deep dive in and you want to get insight into yourself like you've never had before, insight into other people like you've never had before, this is going to be the program that is going to do that. Like no other program, I know that you've been through. How do I know that? All of the clients and students that have gone through that program have told me that 10 years of therapy, God bless, was nothing compared to even 1 hour with me. Okay. That's a gift that I have. I'm not being cocky. I'm God's gift. It's God's gifted me. And that is my gift. That is what I'm able to do with people, is to see them clearly and connect all the dots. Now, over 12 weeks, we meet every Wednesday night for our US group at 7 p.m. Eastern. And for our international students, we meet at 12 noon on Wednesdays, because I'm not trying to see you at 1 in the morning. So if you're in the UK or you're in Africa or you're in anywhere else in the world, we have an international group just for you on Wednesdays at noon. And we go for the course of 12 weeks. And what I'm doing is I'm coming in there live every single week. All right. I'm answering your questions. I am going through the course material step by step. It's a beginning and end. That's why I used to let people in at any time. Like, oh, you can join at any time. But the feedback from the students was, no, we want our group and we want to go through it together from beginning to end, because healing really does happen in community. And whenever you start this with a group of people and you end this with a group of people, it really is life-changing outside of me, but just with the students you go through the course with, because there are some powerhouse students in there. We all have our own wisdom, relationships form in there, friendships, lifetime friendships. And so I want to honor that. And my students asked me for that. And that is why now we only open doors 4 times a year. Okay, every 3 months, because that was a necessity that they asked for, and I honored it. So you're going to begin with the same people and end with the same people. There is a private Facebook group so that you can connect outside of my group, but everything I do is on Zoom in our own private classroom. My personal email you get. And listen, when you come in, within the first month, I get with you one-on-one. I need to know you. Now I'm going to know you in the program, but I want to know you. I want to get your whole history. So I'm going to sit with you. I'm going to get to know you. I'm going to talk with you. And if any point inside of the program that I feel like you could benefit from more help, I will include something else for you. Like I'll say, hey, come meet with me for 30 minutes. Let's get on the phone. Let's get on a Zoom. Let's me and you hash this out. I see you're struggling. I'm always going to be there for you. I'm committed to you throughout the course of that 3 months. Now, $2,500 sounds real cheap for that level of service, right? I would agree. So, but I don't want it to break the bank. I want it to be affordable and reasonable so that you can do it and it's not going to be that big of a deal for you. All right. So if you're ready to join, I'm ready to have you, especially if you've watched this video this far. I normally would say, let's get on the phone. Let me make sure that you're okay to join. Look, if you get inside the program and I'm like, this isn't a good fit, we'll do something else. All right. But for now, I'm going to just know that if you've made it this far, you're probably a good fit. So the next step for you would be to just either right here, leave a comment, say, I want to join, or go over to HeidiRain.com and send me a message. You can click right on my email right there and just send me a private message and say, how do I sign up? And we'll chit chat a little bit and I'll give you the link. And then I'll give you 3 links. One to pay for your program. You get access right away. The second link I'm going to give you is the link to our Wednesday night group or the international group, depending upon where you're located. And the third link I'm going to give you is a link to schedule your private session with me so that we can meet and connect. I can't wait for that. I love you. I want you to come alongside of me inside this program. I want us to be together. I want us to form a relationship. So many times I'll meet with my students or clients and they'll be like, oh my God, I feel like I know you already. I watched all your videos and I love that, right? That like, oh yeah, I know you. It's surreal. I know you feel like you know me, but I want to know you, I want to know you. I want this to be a 2-way street. And so bless me by coming in the program so that I can bless you even more. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to helping you. And as always, I'm going to read these comments afterwards and respond to them tomorrow. So far, the comments have been amazing. I've just been receiving. I'm joining. I can't wait to sign up and show me how. And we're getting started. So I'll see you inside the program. September 7th is the start date. We are not taking any more people in after that. When you join. So now is your time to do that if you want to. And make it happen. All right. Be like my client that made that step and crossed that hurdle of wondering, was she worth it? Once she made that investment, everything else in her life that happened as a result of that is monumental. The changes that she was able to make in her life, the decisions about where she worked, what she did, where she lived, how she carried herself, what she believed in, what she signed up for, what she wanted, what she didn't want, relationships, all of it changed. And I know the same can be true for you. I love you so much. Take excellent care of yourself, and I'll see you tomorrow at noon. All right. Bye-bye.